These teachers were fired for their TikTok videos. Were their administrators justified, or are we holding teachers to unrealistic, outdated standards? Let's talk about it. This first one I have to mute because it has music in the background. This is a middle school science teacher. He's giving a voiceover. So he posted this a day after he went live, and this is his live video. And he's saying that on his live video, he got a lot of backlash, and he's saying nothing is going on funny between him and the students, and if anybody thinks that, you're the problem. He explains that this was the last period of the day. Earlier, he had told the students he had a hair appointment after school, but hadn't had a chance to take his hair out, and the girls volunteered to take his hair out. He allowed and encouraged it. So my first reaction when seeing this was, you have taken student relationships a little bit too far. Teachers are told you need to form relationships with your students. That is how you're going to get to them and get them motivated. He obviously has good relationships with his students because they feel comfortable enough being this close to him, and he's allowing them to groom him. This one split the Black community. At first, everyone was like, absolutely not. A lot of men were saying, I don't want my teenage daughter with her hands in your hair. Then he posted this video of his students writing to him, and he's like partially crying in this video. The kids are saying that they miss him. And I suppose that he was either suspended at this point, or they were talking about what they were going to do, what disciplinary problems, because he couldn't come back the next day. Other people were like, why are your kids texting you? The message starts out with them saying like, hey, bestie. And they were like, why are you so close with your students like that? That's weird. Here's his response to that.
Light always triumphs over darkness. And I'm standing on that. Where were we at? I was reading the
Did he go to Georgetown Prep? Georgetown Prep is a really good school here in the DC area. It's all boys. I believe it's partially boarding, partially day. It's a really good school. Did he go there?
I was reading the emails from my students. They weren't text messages on my. I don't give out my personal phone number. I've never done that in my time as a substitute, in my time as a teacher, all my time working with students. I've never given out my personal number. Me personally, I don't find it the most appropriate thing. Now everyone's different. Just me personally, my personal preference.
Sir, you don't think it's appropriate to give out your phone number, but you do think it's appropriate to have some girls taking apart your hair in your classroom. I think that's such an odd statement coming from this guy who's doing this. And not only this, he's got like a lot of videos of himself on Instagram, like shirtless as a teacher. I don't know. Maybe I'm old school. I feel like that's inappropriate. He also has videos like, look at this one.
No.
You think that's an appropriate video to post, like about your students, and that you're knowing that your students watch your TikTok? Like, that's weird. This man went on the whole Dr. Phil show, you guys. He went on the Dr. Phil show talking about how he's a part of the cancel culture wars. No, what you did was wrong and inappropriate. He was investigated by CPS for this. Was that right or wrong? I think, okay, fine, they did their due diligence. You were investigated for being defiant. Not only did you live stream, because I don't think anything happened when he live streamed. He had views. Right now he has a bunch of followers, like 790,000 followers, but he didn't have that many followers back then. He streamed it and people were like, this is inappropriate. And then he decided to put the stream as a permanent fixture on his feed. You kind of brought that upon yourself. And then he has these videos where he's saying, how is this like any different than that? First of all, that was a skit, okay? Also, the dynamics are different. You can't tell us that there's nothing inappropriate about teenage girls unbraiding a grown man's hair. We know in our community that hair braiding is a very intimate thing. Not saying like intimacy, but it's like between two people who are very close, like a mother and daughter. He thinks that he's being cool. He thinks he's building relationships. One of his responses was like, some of y'all have never had a cool teacher, and it shows. Like, sir, what? I have had plenty of cool teachers. At no point did I groom any of my teachers. From his point of view, he's like, nothing's going on here. This is just me and my students. We're building a relationship. You guys are wrong about this. Like, there was nothing going on. There is going to be nothing going on. He doesn't want to have kids. He's like, I would be totally fine if these were one of my daughters. Okay. What he doesn't understand is that teenage girls develop crushes on their teachers all of the time. And he doesn't understand the type of drama and jealousy that can go on between girl groups. Even though it feels innocent to him, they may not feel that way, and they are definitely not going to express that, but there can definitely be friendships lost, little jealousy things here and there. You're just creating a distraction in the classroom that's so unnecessary, and it takes away from the environment of learning and academic achievement. And that's a big no-no in the classroom. I also resent the fact that people think that we have to, especially as Black teachers or anybody teaching Black students, have to go above and beyond and have these ultra close relationships with students because that's the only way to get through these hardened kids with no fathers. That is not true. There are so many professional teachers who simply just teach, who inspire their students because of their love of learning. They love their students. They have close relationships with their students. Their teachers love them. They never had to do all this extra stuff to get their students engaged. And while I guarantee there are kids who absolutely love this teacher, and this is maybe the first time a teacher has been so cool with them and it's been a breakthrough for them, there are also probably students who absolutely hate that. I was one of those students who hated teachers who got so close to students, so much so that it would show in the classroom. Okay, this next one I didn't even want to do because it's so crazy. This is a teacher in Detroit, and she was fired because of her rap videos. Apparently, she does rap videos on the side, and there was a complaint from a parent that she was spending class time promoting her rap videos, which were inappropriate. You guys can be the judge of if these are appropriate or not.
Motown baby going crazy like the 80s. Motown baby going crazy like the 80s. Motown baby going crazy like the 80s. I put it on the floor when I dare around the city. Owe me money, shit is silly. Buy my money just like 50. Got the power in the been talking 48219 to me, but I ain't never got the time. He asked him how I'm doing. Always on the grind. I'm just getting started. The money's where my mind at. Got that raw honey, you can find me with a high vet. Real recognize real. Niggas wanna blame me.
So as you can see, some kids were in that video. The school district got a lot of backlash for firing her. It says, a local woman is saying she was recently fired from her teaching position because of her rap career and music videos. Dominique Brown, whose rap name is Drippin' Honey, has been an educator for 7 years. She started teaching at Taylor Prep High School in August. That came to an end after one of the parents came across her rap videos. First of all, she says that the parent wished to stay anonymous and felt like she didn't like my rap career and that I was a bad influence on the kids because I rap. I don't think it's just because she raps. I think it's because of the content of your rap videos and the words and the language of it and the distraction that it obviously is causing in the classroom. She says that there were meetings and an ultimatum. You need to erase all your content. And she said, no, she's not going to do that. The school got a lot of backlash for this, and so they came out and they said she was not fired. She decided to leave because she didn't want to adhere to their policies. And on the last day of school, in a defiant move, she created a music video with her students. She resigned from her position. They told her beforehand that she was violating the teacher code of conduct, and to stop, there were students and parents voicing concerns over Miss Brown's promotion of her social media accounts in the classroom. We prohibit employees from engaging with students through any social media platforms. Every teacher agrees to comply with this code of conduct when hired. Telling your students to follow you on social media, you can't do that. And they say we want people to follow their passion, but that's not the question here. Ms. Brown chose to resign to avoid complying with a policy designed to protect our students. Why are we even having this conversation? Why do we not get to choose the best of the best, the top of the top? Because there are certain districts, this would not even be a conversation. You're out. Like, you wouldn't even dare. Why can't our schools be like, no, we're not going to choose teachers with questionable ethics. We're only choosing the best of the best. It's so weird. Okay, let's look at this last one. Okay, this one is crazy.
In
March of this year, former Becker Elementary third grade teacher Sophia De Loreto Chetty says a school administrator called her into a meeting for a check-in. Being a first-year educator hired with no teaching experience, she thought the meeting would address the challenges she was facing.
Let's guess. It's not. You're a first-year teacher. You're having a hard time. If you expect your admin to come in and be like, let me see how I can support you. No, that's not what they're going to do. They're going to be like, you need to get it together.
The whole meeting just felt incredibly demoralizing.
Instead, the administrator told Sophia she wanted to go over a list of concerns.
It said on this list, verbatim, "We've noticed an intentional attempt at teaching your students their legal and constitutional rights." And she went on to ask me what it brought about the decision for my students to sit during the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sophia says this began with a lesson about the Holocaust. In Texas, schools are required to teach students about it during its Remembrance Week. During the lesson, students drew similarities between nationalism and propaganda, which Sophia says motivated them to question the Pledge of Allegiance and decided to protest the pledge.
So I explained that all to my assistant principal, and she didn't buy it. She didn't believe that they would be able to make the decision on their own.
It seems like she's bringing politics into her classroom. And when I was teaching, we were told, like, yeah, go in there and you teach the kids about this, that, and the third. And you're really not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to bring much political stuff into your classroom, especially she's teaching the third grade. And this was definitely a mistake I made as a teacher. I don't think it did any harm. However, once I kind of realized, actually, this needs to shift a little bit, I stopped.
Sophia then made what she calls an emotionally charged decision to share her concerns in this TikTok video.
Okay, so today I got pulled into a check-in meeting with my administrator at school, and she had this lovely list of concerns that she wanted to bring to my attention. But my favorite amongst them is, "We've noticed an intentional attempt at teaching your students about their legal and constitutional rights." That's the concern. They're concerned. Why are you concerned? Why is that a concern? Why is it a concern? Why is it a concern? Why does that concern you? Why is it a concern?
So it looks like she's trying to play like, oh, I'm a teacher in Texas. Texas is so conservative. And here I am teaching my kids about their constitutional rights and having them not stand up for the pledge. And now I got in trouble. So Texas. But I did some digging. Because first of all, I paused the video and I was like, hold on, let me take a look. Let's take a look at what they actually are saying to you. They have a whole host of things of what they are saying. Because normally if you're just doing like one thing that's a little bit, edgy, they're not going to say anything to you. But when you're doing way too much, that's when they're going to be like, okay, listen, you need to stop. And if we look here closely, we pause the video and look at this. Okay, concerns, communication methods, instructional alignment, ethics and core values, roles and responsibilities, dress code. Girl, you got 5 concerns on there. And guess what, guys? She is an ESL teacher. So that's English as a second language. Number 1, communication method. You are failing to respond to emails and Teams messages within 24 hours. And then I couldn't see, like, why is she covering up the bottom part? Because the bottom is for real. Like, as I looked, I went through like frame by frame to try to see what they were saying. And they were basically saying, girl, you're off the chain. Dress code? What dress code is she not following? First of all, it also says instructional alignment. We've noticed your students are reading Harry Potter. How is this aligned with the grade level standards? Because they're right. Harry Potter is not a 3rd grade level book. And especially if you're teaching English as a second language. What TEKS, I'm guessing those are the Texas instructional something standards. How are they being assessed during this time? Okay. Do you have lesson plans that align with this book study? So it's okay, yeah, study books, but like, where's your lesson plans with this? How is this aligned? How is this going to make the students better at speaking and reading English? And then, yes, we've noticed an intentional attempt to teach your students their legal and constitutional rights. What brought about this? So I would definitely be upset too if I were like a first-year teacher drowning and the first thing they come at you with, here's a list of all the things doing wrong. With teachers like this, she had no teaching experience. You guys really did need to support her better and handhold. You got to do a lot of handholding with some of these teachers these days, or they'll have nervous breakdowns. One of the things they say here are the students standing because they're trying to please their teacher or because they truly believe and have a personal personal reasons for what they're doing. And that is so big in education. Students, especially elementary school students, do things to please their teacher. They are easily influenced. I don't care what anyone on either side politically has to say. Kids are easily influenced. Do you know what I influence my kids to do? Read. I influence my students to read, and they read to please me as a teacher. That's not necessarily good. That was good for when they were in the classroom for that year, but when kids are doing something to please you, they do it and then they might stop the next year. My students were reading like crazy. That doesn't mean that they became lifelong readers. And so that's what they're asking here. And this is a common question. Are your students doing this just to please you? It's the same with behavior. We say we don't want students to have good behavior just to please you as a teacher. We want that underlining core value. So that's a legitimate concern that they're bringing up. And then they're asking, how is this aligned? How are you assessing what you're learning? What is this about? This is classroom time here. We're trying to teach these students. She probably has the academically lowest students. It is not fair for you to be in the classroom going off teaching about your own political, whatever you want to teach about, whether it's political or it's Harry Potter or whatever, and not to be teaching them like the specific standards that they need to know.
The next day, Human Resources told her she was being placed on administrative leave.
And I said, why? And they said, because your TikTok has been causing a lot of disruptions at the district today.
While on leave, AISD investigated the matter, later telling her she would be terminated because the video violates the district's social media policies. The code also restricts employees from sharing confidential records, including educator evaluations, which is seen in her video.
The big thing that I want to come out of this is I want to see a policy change. This policy specifically was incredibly big and could be interpreted however the district wanted it to in order to fire teachers and to sweep things under the rug.
While putting this story together, some parents contacted CBS Austin saying Sophia was an unfit teacher. Others say the district's decision was chaotic and disruptive and felt the video didn't put students at risk.
So she posted the video on TikTok and it went viral. And the next day they were like, hey, you're going to be terminated because you are bringing negative attention to the district. Okay? That's what it was for. She was not recommended for termination because of what she was doing. That paper was just like, hey, you're doing this. Don't do this. Just like the dude with the hair. They didn't terminate him. They're just like, hey, this was a poor decision. So they're telling you as a teacher, don't do this. Like, please focus on academics in your classroom. But because you posted it and because now you're bringing negative attention to the school, it's causing strife between students, faculty, and the community. It's diminishing your effectiveness in the district. So that's where it seems like most of these people are fired or removed or asked to resign underneath. You know the funny thing about this? Her story just didn't seem right. We should always question these stories, right? And so then I looked up her school because, I don't know, I was just interested in like, oh, what school is that? And then I saw here that it's in the heart of Bolden Creek, the Bolden Creek neighborhood in South Austin. And then I read and it says, Bolden Creek is a diverse, laid-back neighborhood in touch with the Keep Austin Weird vibe. Quirky shops mixed with trendy cafes and old school Mexican joints. Okay, is that giving you like Texas traditional vibes? Because it's not giving me Texas conservative, oh, I got in trouble because I had my kids sit for the pledge type vibes. And then I'm like, wait a minute, Austin, Texas. Like, I feel like I've heard of Austin, Texas as being a liberal place that people go, not being terribly conservative. So then I go and I look up the presidential election map. I pull up this CNN election results. And by the way, can I please tell you guys just real quick, this map does not mean that the United States overwhelmingly voted Republican. Okay, I've wanted to talk about this since the election. It's so annoying to be on social media and right after the election people were like, oh my gosh, I'm leaving this country. It's so horrible. Everyone in this country is Republican and I don't feel safe. And then on the other side, Republicans were like, yeah, finally, America has shown that we want conservative values. Now you see, like, everyone in America is actually for this. And it's just a small group of people who are against us. Look at this map. This is exactly why they want to keep the population uneducated. Take a look at the popular vote, okay? Donald Trump received 49.8% of the popular vote. Kamala Harris received 48.3%. It was basically 50-50, okay? It's almost always like this. The reason why this map looks like this is because those red states don't have that many people in them. Let's take a look at Washington versus North Dakota, right? If you were to look at this, you would say like, okay, let's put Washington and North Dakota together. You would think like, oh my goodness, half of this little country is Democratic and half of them are Republican. No. In North Dakota, where Donald Trump won, he got 246,000 votes versus Kamala Harris got 111,000 votes. As opposed to Washington State, where 2.2 million people voted for Kamala Harris and 1.5 million voted for Donald Trump. Okay, a lot more people in the state of Washington voted. There's this stereotype of Texas that it's really ultra conservative, and she was playing on that stereotype when she wrote POV, you're a teacher in Texas. And so then I look at Texas and I hover over this. Texas ain't all that Republican, okay? Donald Trump received 51% of the vote. Kamala Harris received 42% of the vote. Now, I know that's not 50-50, but it's certainly not like someplace like
Oklahoma.
Anyway, then I click onto Texas. Again, someone else might look at this map and say, oh my goodness, Texas is so conservative. But you know what? That these small little places up here that are all red, they have really tiny populations and they don't count as much as a place like El Paso that's bigger, or Dallas. Look at Austin where she teaches. Not only is Austin blue, but it's overwhelmingly blue. Like, it's the bluest on this map, okay? With 68% voting for Kamala Harris and 29% voting for Donald Trump. Like, come on, honey. She should have tried that maybe like over here next door. Okay, let's look at one more. This guy.
We have to stop holding teachers to higher standards than we hold the president. Like, I hate that it even has to be said, but we are not saints. And that is not the job we signed up for. Most of our favorite hours of the day is happy hour. Like,
he's not lying about that in the terms of like a lot of teachers. When I started teaching, there was a teacher who told me, if you're not doing something like happy hour, you won't be able to teach. And at the time when I was younger, I was like, oh, haha, okay, I can kind of see it. But as a grown adult now, 30 somethings, I'm like, you don't know. You need to find other ways to cope with the stresses of your job.
Every time one of my videos does well, I inevitably get two comments. One is, be careful posting this publicly. And the other is, I'm going to contact your district. And let me just say to both of you, okay, the president-elect of the United States has pantomimed blowing a microphone, has joked about non-consensual touching, and unironically said, there's my black, to a person in his crowd. So no, I don't think that anything I post should have any effect on my employment.
Okay. He says he doesn't feel like anything he posts should have any effect on his employment. What do you guys think? Let's see what he posted that got him fired.
Teachers, if a student is annoying you, just remember, you can lie. There's nothing that says you have to tell the truth all the time. I teach history. I tell my students the wrong stuff all the time when they annoy me. I tell them that Abraham Lincoln invented the car. That's why it's named after him. I tell them Logan Paul and Jake Paul had a great-grandfather named Paul Revere.
Honestly, if you're joking like that with your student, he's probably annoyed. Like, that's what he's saying. He's like, if your students are annoying you. And I feel like if your students are annoying you, then you're not teaching. So what are you doing? Let's just get back to teaching, please.
Because they don't even know how names work anymore. And I crop dust them all the time. I save up big, milky, lactose-intolerant farts, and I drop bombs silently because I'm an adult and I know my body. And then I just let it stew. And then I walk away and I go, oh my God, it stinks over there. And then they have to sit with it. And you know what? They can't fire me because they need me too badly.
Plot twist, they fired him. Apparently they didn't need him that badly. I don't really like his type of comedy. I did watch some of his stand-up. It's kind of like raunchy, nasty. I don't like gross comedy type stuff. The reason why he was fired is because somebody saw that video and was like, hey, he's doing this to the kids. He's walking by them and passing gas and joking about it. On the surface, it seems kind of silly, but also it is really unprofessional, and who wants to be, that's kind of gross. Yeah, I don't know. He's saying like, oh, because Donald Trump is a hot mess and teachers should be able to be a hot mess. I don't think we should go down the road of being raunchy. I don't think so. I've been there joking and kidding and playing around with my kids, but at the same time, you don't want to do anything that would make any student uncomfortable. And while you may feel like, oh, that's too rigid, then maybe this just isn't the profession for you. It's literally not that serious. Just have a different profession. I don't like that teaching is seen as like, this backup thing, like, well, if I can't do that, I'll just teach. No. Okay, that's it. I can't take watching any more of these videos.